The morning sun reflected off the shiny yellow Lamborghini as it cruised through the busy city streets. Behind the wheel sat Samantha Hayes, a young woman known not only for her wealth but also for her pride. She belonged to one of the richest families in town, and she never missed a chance to remind everyone of it. Her clothes screamed designer labels, her perfume was imported, and her attitude was louder than the roar of her car. That day, Samantha was heading to an exclusive fashion event, one that only the elite could attend. Everything had to be perfect, her makeup, her outfit, her entrance. But fate had other plans. As she stopped at a signal, the car suddenly coughed, sputtered, and went completely silent. She tried to restart it, pressing the ignition button repeatedly, but nothing happened. Frustration flashed across her face. "Ugh, what's wrong with this stupid car?" she yelled, slamming her hand on the steering wheel. Within minutes, traffic began to pile up behind her. People started honking impatiently. Samantha's anger grew as drivers stared at her expensive car blocking the way. She stepped out, flipping her hair, and tried to wave off the irritation. Just then, a young mechanic named Ryan from a nearby garage noticed the scene. Wiping his hands on a dirty cloth, he walked over and said politely, "Ma'am, looks like your car broke down. Want me to take a look?" Samantha turned sharply toward him, her eyes narrowing. The man standing before her wore an old oil-stained uniform and dusty shoes. "You," she scoffed. "Do you even know how to fix a Lamborghini? This isn't some cheap car." The crowd began to murmur, sensing drama. Ryan didn't get offended. He smiled faintly and said, "I've worked on cars for years. I can at least try to help." But Samantha wasn't done. "Please," she said with a mocking laugh, "if you touch it, you'll probably break it even more." Her tone dripped with arrogance as she crossed her arms. People around began whispering, some even recording the moment on their phones. But Ryan stayed calm, quietly observing the car. Samantha, unaware of what was about to happen next, had no idea that this poor mechanic was about to teach her a lesson she would never forget. The crowd's laughter echoed as Samantha stood beside her bright yellow Lamborghini, still wearing her arrogant smile. Ryan didn't say a word. Instead, he walked around the car slowly, his eyes sharp and observant. Years of experience had trained him to notice even the smallest details, something no fancy garage computer could replace. He gently placed his hand on the hood, then opened it with care. The smell of expensive engine oil filled the air. Samantha crossed her arms and rolled her eyes. "Be quick, please," she said coldly. "I don't have all day." Her voice carried that same superiority that came from a life of luxury and comfort. Ryan just nodded. His hands, rough and stained from years of work, moved with surprising precision. The crowd around grew quiet, watching as the poor mechanic began inspecting the world's most luxurious sports car. He checked the wiring, spark plugs and fuel line, then leaned in closer to the ignition coil. His brow furrowed slightly. He had already spotted the issue. It was a simple electrical fault that any skilled mechanic could fix in minutes. But as he worked, Samantha's friends, who had arrived in another car, began whispering and giggling. One of them sneered, "Look at him! He probably can't even afford the tire of this car." Ryan heard the comment but didn't respond. He knew that dignity was not measured by money or appearance. He stayed focused, determined to prove his worth through his work, not words. A few curious bystanders pulled out their phones to record the scene, sensing that something interesting was about to happen. After a few moments, Ryan closed the hood and wiped his hands on a rag. He looked at Samantha and said calmly, "Try starting it now." She raised an eyebrow, half amused and half skeptical. "Really? That's it?" she scoffed, walking toward the driver's seat. The crowd waited in silence. Samantha pressed the ignition button lazily, expecting nothing, but to her utter shock, the engine came alive instantly. The roar of the Lamborghini filled the street, powerful and flawless. Gasps spread through the crowd. The same people who laughed earlier now looked at Ryan in amazement. Samantha froze, her expression turning from arrogance to disbelief. For a moment, time seemed to stop. The loud purr of the Lamborghini's engine echoed down the street, silencing every whisper. Samantha's painted lips parted slightly in disbelief. She stared at Ryan through the windshield, her expression a mix of surprise and confusion. Just a few minutes ago, she had humiliated him in front of everyone. Now the same man had done what she couldn't. Ryan stepped back from the car, his face calm and humble. The crowd that had gathered around began to clap. A few people even whistled. Someone shouted, "Now that's a real mechanic." The same group of Samantha's friends who were laughing earlier suddenly went quiet, looking away awkwardly. Samantha felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She stepped out of the car and approached Ryan. How did you do that?" she asked softly, still stunned. Ryan gave a small smile and replied, "It was just a minor problem with the ignition coil. Nothing too serious." His tone was gentle, but his confidence was clear. For the first time, Samantha looked at him properly, not as a poor man, but as someone who clearly knew his craft. The grease on his hands, the worn-out clothes, the humble attitude, all suddenly seemed like marks of hard work and pride, not poverty. The realization hit her like a wave. People around were murmuring things like, "She should apologize," and "That guy saved her day." Samantha's pride began to crumble under the weight of their stares. Her friends, seeing her discomfort, pretended to be busy on their phones. Ryan didn't wait for praise. He simply said, "Your car's fine now," and began to walk away toward his small garage. His humility made the moment even more powerful. Samantha called out, "Wait!" But he didn't stop right away. When he finally turned, she took a deep breath and said, "Thank you. And I'm sorry for what I said earlier." Ryan nodded politely. "No problem, miss. Everyone makes mistakes. Just remember, respect doesn't cost anything." Then he turned and walked away, leaving behind a crowd that had just witnessed a priceless lesson. Samantha stood there watching him go, realizing that true class wasn't about luxury, it was about character. That night, Samantha couldn't sleep. The sound of her Lamborghini's engine kept replaying in her mind, not because it had roared back to life, but because of the man who had made it happen. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Ryan's calm expression, his steady hands, and the humble way he spoke after fixing her car. For the first time in her life, someone had silenced her arrogance, not with anger, but with dignity. Lying in her luxurious bedroom, surrounded by things money could buy, Samantha realized she had never felt so small before. "Respect doesn't cost anything," Ryan's words echoed in her ears. She thought about how she had mocked him, humiliated him in front of dozens of people, and treated him like he was less than her, all because of his appearance. Guilt began to replace her pride. The next morning, she decided to do something she had never done before. She got into her car, now working perfectly, and drove straight to the small garage near the corner where Ryan worked. It wasn't a fancy place like the ones she usually visited. It was old, the walls stained with oil, and the air filled with the smell of engines and metal. Yet there was something peaceful about it. Ryan was busy repairing a customer's bike when she arrived. He looked surprised to see her, but quickly wiped his hands and smiled politely. "Good morning, Miss Hayes. Everything fine with the car?" he asked. Samantha nodded slowly. "Yes, it's perfect. I actually came to thank you." "Properly this time." Ryan shrugged lightly. "No need. I was just doing my job." But Samantha shook her head. "No, you did more than that. You taught me something I really needed to learn." She looked around the workshop, the simple tools, the small fan, the old radio playing soft music. And for the first time, she understood what real work looked like. "You know," she said softly, "yesterday I thought being rich made me better than others. But I was wrong. You fixed my car, but more importantly, you fixed my attitude." Ryan smiled at her words, slightly embarrassed. "I'm glad you feel that way. We all have our own paths, Miss Hayes. Some people have money, others have skill. What matters is how we treat each other." Samantha felt tears forming in her eyes. She wasn't used to people speaking to her with such honesty and kindness. "Please just call me Samantha," she said quietly. "And if you ever need anything, my family owns a few car dealerships in the city. I'd love to help you expand your business." Ryan chuckled softly. That's kind of you, Samantha, but I'm happy with my little garage. I love what I do. She nodded, respecting his simplicity. Then at least let me do one thing, she said. I want people to know about you. You deserve it. Over the next few weeks, Samantha began visiting Ryan's garage regularly. She posted about his skill and kindness on her social media, telling her followers about the lesson she learned that day. Never judge someone by their clothes or job, she wrote. Character and respect matter more than luxury. The post went viral. People admired her honesty, and soon Ryan's small garage began to get more customers than ever before. One day, a luxury car company offered Ryan a job as a senior technician because of the attention he'd received. When he told Samantha about it, she smiled proudly. "See, the world finally knows your worth," she said. But Ryan simply replied, "Worth isn't about who notices you. It's about staying true to yourself, even when no one's watching." Those words stuck with her. Samantha started volunteering at community centers, helping underprivileged youth learn about mechanics and engineering. She used her influence to create opportunities for people like Ryan, talented, hardworking, but often overlooked. Slowly, her reputation changed. People no longer called her the arrogant rich girl. They called her the woman who learned humility. Months later, she visited Ryan again, this time just to say thank you. "You probably don't realize how much you changed my life," she told him. "Before that day, I thought I had everything. But now I understand. Respect, kindness, and humility are the real luxuries." Ryan smiled, tightening a bolt on an engine. "And you learned that faster than most people do," he said. Samantha laughed lightly. "I guess sometimes life needs to stall your engine before you can restart it the right way." They both smiled. Two very different people from two very different worlds, connected by one powerful lesson. True worth isn't measured by wealth, but by heart.